Welcome to the Digital Planning Podcast. This series is designed to educate individuals about all things digital in connection with estate planning, business planning, and estate administration. To keep up with all things digital, please subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you download your podcasts. And now, Jennifer Ziegel, a partner at Kleinberg LLC, Ross Bruck, a principal of Estate Genie, and Justin Brown, a partner at Troutman Pepperell Hamilton Sanders LLP, with today's topic.
Welcome to the Digital Planning Podcast. I'm Justin, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Ross and Jen. And today, we're going to change it up a little bit. We usually talk with people in the industry, but today, we're going to talk about non-fungible tokens, or NFTs, just among the three of us, and just have a roundtable discussion about what they are, how they're being used, and what the future of NFTs are. So to get the ball rolling, let me just put the question out there for all of our listeners who may not know what NFTs are. Jen, what are NFTs?
So NFTs, non-fungible tokens, are essentially a digital token embedded within a smart contract. And NFTs can be digital art, it could be pictures, videos, collectibles like virtual baseball cards or other sports cards. It can even be documents or a tweet that's memorialized. And non-fungible means that there is only one of a kind. Now, it's important to understand that the NFT is not the actual art or the collectible. It is only a smart contract that can set rights to receive royalties or rights to transfer or own the asset that it is pointing to. And that's what the NFT actually does. It's not the art itself. It merely points to the location of the digital asset and can be programmed, to collect those royalties upon future sales, or you can carve out other different types of contractual terms within the code of the smart contract of the NFT. Now, taking this a step, back, NFTs have hit mainstream conversation with the sensational sale of the artwork created by Mike Winkleman that sold for a record-breaking $69.3 million at Sotheby's auction. And this was just one of the first really introductions of NFTs into mainstream conversation. And it's played a huge hand in really elevating and evolving just the general crypto conversation to new heights, which can have a lot of additional complexities for estate planning and estate administration, among other issues.
So let's go back to the origins of NFTs, all the way back to the historic year of, I think, 2017. So we're talking about a very short history of this technology, of this platform. And there was I don't know if I want to call it a game or a platform, might be the better word, called CryptoKitties. Now, CryptoKitties, imagine that you have a digital token, a digital trading card almost, if you will. And we're going to come back to trading cards because I think NFT's impact on the sports collectibles world is notable. But imagine you have a token that is a picture of an animated cat. It has descriptions of the characteristics of the cat. So this is an imaginary cat, a cartoon cat maybe. And you can have multiple cartoon token cats, CryptoKitties. And then you can pair them together to make new cats. So each token has a spot on the blockchain. That is where it lives. That is where you know that it is a one-of-a-kind a token. And then when you create a new cat through this process that has never been made before, because you're combining two different elements and two different cats with different characteristics into a new one, that too has a spot on the blockchain. That was pretty much the world of NFTs for a number of years. I remember talking to somebody 2 years ago and saying, "Oh well, we've been hearing a little bit about non-fungible tokens," and the person who was fairly well versed in the tech world's reaction was, "Oh, you mean like CryptoKitties?" It has exploded since then, the last 2 years, and as Jen, as you alluded to, the art world has quickly caught up in an exponential manner.
Ross, you mentioned a couple of types of NFTs. Are there any other types of NFTs?
There are numerous. So, for example, Elon Musk turned one of his tweets into an NFT and auctioned it off. You could turn tickets for any type of event into an NFT so that it still operates the same way, but it's going to live on the blockchain. There's some advantages and disadvantages to that process. It's more cumbersome, but it might have more secure properties. So there might be reasons to do that. You could turn music and put an album make an album, an NFT, and put it on the blockchain. Kings of Leon is a rock band, and I believe they were the first ones to turn their latest album into an NFT. And where some of the attractiveness of doing so comes into play is some of the added benefits that you can associate with that. You could, I think what they did is anybody who purchased the NFT version of their album had either additional artwork that was available to them, or perhaps some ticket sale opportunities that you might not be able to get if you just purchased the physical or non-NFT digital album. So anything that could be turned into a digital file could be turned into an NFT. It's another medium for artists. If you created a painting and then turned it into a digital format, you could then take that and put it onto the blockchain. It has a designated address and a spot, and it is an individual item. You can make 500 more of them, but that one spot on the blockchain is different than every other 5 of the 500 that you've just created. So it is another way for ownership of something like a piece of artwork. I mentioned sports collectibles before. You could turn a trading card, a baseball card, if you will, into an NFT, and that could be sold. Some of the sports leagues are taking that to the next level. And for example, the NBA has a product called NBA Top Shots, in which the purchaser acquires a short video clip of some NBA highlight. And obviously, the more impressive the athletic feats, the higher price, or the more valuable that specific NFT is intended to be. You can buy them from the NBA in almost mimicking the old school physical. You get a deck of or a set of cards that you're unwrap, and you don't know exactly what you're getting. But then there's a secondary market where those can be sold. What else are we seeing in terms of NFTs?
So one of the features that makes NFTs so unique, especially from a collector's perspective, is the concept of provable rarity. And by virtue of the hard coding behind each NFT, the chain of history specific to that NFT, from creation, to where it exists at any moment in time, is completely visible on a public blockchain. And this is intended to remove questions of authenticity and chain of title and ownership concerns that can result with a lot of traditional collectibles. But there's a lot of issues or potential problems that could arise with NFTs. And although this technology has technically been around, for many years, as Ross pointed out, it's still in its infancy. And some of the issues that are presented that we're going to discuss in a moment really need to be taken into consideration for clients who have NFTs and, just generally other cryptocurrency. NFT planning is more complicated than just, general cryptocurrency planning, which is, more advanced.
So Jen, explain this to me like I'm a 10-year-old. If I have an NFT, what does that look like? Is that a file on my computer? Is that a file on a USB drive? Do I hold a key to something that is on the internet in some way? What exactly do I have?
It can be held in a lot of different forms, and a private key, which is an alphanumeric code, is essential in order to access and transfer an NFT. And there's also a public code, a public address. And in prior episodes for people who are, really confused about this or just kind of dipping their toe into the digital asset waters, we do have some episodes in prior seasons all about the basics of blockchain technology and some information there to kind of understand some of the basics. But in terms of an NFT, and to answer your question, Justin, it could be stored in a digital wallet. It could be kept on a public exchange. It could be stored in any one of those fashions. And while I may have the private keys and am embedded in the code of ownership on a blockchain for an NFT, if I have it publicly displayed, you, Justin, could still be able to view my NFT and see it, even though you're not the owner and you can't transfer it. So it has some unique characteristics that way. And there can also be a lot of intellectual property and copyright concerns that come up generally with NFTs and what art or picture of art is being used to create an NFT, for example, in the art world.
So if I hold this NFT and it's in a digital wallet and I have a key that I have to use in order to access this NFT, how do I plan for a client who owns one of these NFTs in an estate plan? How can they be passed down? How can they be stored? How are there specific planning strategies that you would use for people who hold NFTs?
So the first step would be making sure that the planner is aware, that the client has an NFT or has other digital assets. And much like with estate planning questionnaires or intake meetings with future clients, asking if the client has cryptocurrencies or NFTs or other types of digital collectibles should now be a standard question. I have, friends and colleagues that you wouldn't think that they have NFT collections because they don't fit, a typical persona, but they may have a very wide NFT collection and are avid digital asset holders. So I think it needs to be a general planning question at the outset of an engagement. And then depending on what the client's uses are, that will shape the planning. I mean, if they are an NFT trader, there are NFT traders, that could look like a different situation. You may want to form an LLC or different types of trust structures that also are owned or within it have LLCs that own the underlying NFTs. It really kind of depends what the client's ultimate goals are. Now, I haven't seen it yet, but I would also imagine in the coming years, as this advances, there may be ways to actually program in the code of an NFT beneficiary designations. Now, we're not there yet, and any web developers out there who are interested in that, please contact us. We would love to bring you on the show and talk more about that because it's an interesting issue.
I saw recently on CNN that they are selling NFTs of historical events, and they're selling a limited number of these videos of historical events. For example, when Barack Obama became president. Why would somebody want this?
So, Justin, let me answer that question with another question. First, do either of the two of you own any NFTs? I do not.
I do not either.
I do. I really wanted to understand this more deeply. And so my father in his spare time is an artist, and I have minted an NFT of one of his paintings with his permission.
That's pretty cool. Okay. We just learned something. So to go back to the CNN example of historical events, here's where I'm a little bit unsure of the future of NFTs, because to me, yes, you could own a historic event, the video of it, but I could also just go to YouTube and watch that clip, perhaps. But if I'm going to argue with myself then, because if it's a collectible item and it's just in the digital format, that same logic applies to the hundreds of baseball cards I have in the garage that I could have just found a picture of that individual player, and I could have just downloaded his stats, and I could have not actually bought the baseball card, maybe not when I was 10 years old because that other format didn't exist. But now in this day and age, the fact that baseball cards still have relevancy gives some credibility to collectible NFTs? I'm not sure. I think where the important planning aspect here is for attorneys to be knowledgeable about what their clients may be doing. But opining on the future of NFTs and whether or not they're going to be relevant in 10 years is way beyond my capacity. I just don't know yet. I'm agnostic to that.
I guess the difference, Ross, in your example would be my baseball cards, for example, when I was a kid, there is a limited number of those baseball cards. Whereas if you're looking at the moment when Barack Obama became president, that is something that could be posted on YouTube. So maybe in the future, there would be less things posted on YouTube. So there would be more uniqueness in these videos and they would have more value as NFTs.
That could absolutely be true. I think some of the value in the current NFTs that are being created is with the assumption or belief or trust that who is ever generating those NFTs is going to limit the supply. If they're not going to, then that just becomes a commodity and it's as good as the YouTube video that anybody could download and watch, in my view. So to me, that trust in the manufacturer or the generator of an NFT is really essential. And if a company like CNN says we're only going to issue 100 of these, okay, maybe I believe that. Maybe you'll change your mind later on. If somebody I've never met before says I have this cool artwork and you can have the only copy, where's the trust that you're going to limit that supply? That's where I struggle.
In that vein, I want to mention that Nike has patented a system for using NFTs to help reduce counterfeit sneaker sales, to help protect sneakerheads. Those are people who are avid sneaker collectors, be protected in the resale market, because there's a lot of fraud and counterfeit on resale of novel sneakers.
See, that's a great use of this technology. So we were talking a lot about collectibles, but there's many other ways in which NFTs can become relevant, both into the economy as well as in other functions that it might replace. And I'm sure we don't have a full understanding of that yet. I'm excited to see what's next for NFTs, but your guess is as good as mine.
I think a lot of luxury designers are also implementing NFTs to help track and also curtail fraudulent resales of their goods.
With these NFTs, there are terms of service agreements. So what, as an attorney, should I know about these terms of service agreements if I have a client who comes to me and wants me to review the terms of service agreement for an NFT that they are purchasing?
So first, let me say that if you have a client coming to you asking you to read the terms of service, you're way ahead of the game to start with. You have a very wise client, because most individuals, I believe, will not bother to read the terms of service, which is a real shame when they're purchasing NFTs or involved in NFT ownership, because there's a lot of limitations on the terms of service agreements. NFTs generally are structured as some sort of license agreement where you're granted a license with a number of restrictions over that type of ownership. So the terms of service might limit your transferability. Maybe you can't sell it. Maybe you can't even give it away without giving up your rights to the NFT. You might forfeit all rights to the NFT if you violate these terms of service. You may or may not be able to display your NFT or show anybody else the NFT, whether it's online or in the real world. And especially, you're most likely going to be limited in displaying that NFT for profit and actually charging anybody to go into your virtual museum or in a real life situation to view the NFT. That might be subject to forfeiture back to the original licensor as well. And then we also have the added burden that some NFT contracts are structured as smart contracts, where if I bought an NFT from you, Justin, and then sold it to Jen, but made a profit and charged a higher amount in my sale to Jen, Justin might be entitled to 10% of that sale. And then when Jen sells it, he might get another 10% of that sale price. These terms are going to be spelled out in the terms of service agreement. But it's also important to understand what you're purchasing if you're going to be giving up some of the value in the future sales, and as well as you might be limited in where you can sell that in the future. So long story short, there's numerous restrictions that the attorney and the owner must be aware of, especially when we're dealing with such valuable assets that are claiming these very high auction prices and sale prices.
I would only add that as part of that review and consideration of where the NFT is going to proverbially live is storage costs and also fees associated with buying and selling the NFT on certain types of platforms. There can also be restrictions on the blockchain that the NFT resides on. And if it is transferred to a different blockchain, there could be issues with not recognizing royalties or invalidating the contract. Because right now there is no universal code that would operate, seamlessly across multiple blockchains. And while the Ethereum blockchain network is, I would say, one of the more prominent blockchains that NFTs are running on, the costs to mint and store and buy and sell NFTs on Ethereum has been on the rise. And so there are a lot of people considering other blockchains that operate in similar fashion to Ethereum that might be more utilized in the future. And they may not be compatible with an NFT that's already existing, on another blockchain. So that needs to be considered, as well as if there are any ability to customize royalty structures, within the terms of service. In addition, there can be a lot of underlying copyright issues in the art or asset itself, and it may not be specifically a part of the NFT. And if there aren't copyrights being transferred, through the terms of service through the NFT, then they're likely non-existent. NFTs can easily infringe on someone else's copyright if it's not done with permission. And an interesting example of this is Jay-Z's company, Rockefeller Records, recently sued Damon Dash earlier this year for minting an NFT of Jay-Z's debut album, Reasonable Doubt. And the NFT was apparently going to be auctioned at Superfarm's online market in June of this year. Rockefeller found out what was going on and brought suit seeking to prohibit Dash from selling any interest in the Reasonable Doubt NFT, awarding them damages, and declaring that the actual NFT of Reasonable Doubt was owned by the company and not Damon Dash. I will note that Damon Dash, Jay-Z, and Corinne Burke each own 1/3 of Rockefeller Records, but Damon Dash didn't have the legal authority to mint an NFT of a company-owned asset.
What other issues should we be aware of when we're thinking about NFTs?
I think one really big issue that I touched on in the beginning that we haven't really dived into is long-term storage issues, and also that, again, the NFT is not the digital asset or art itself. It's merely pointing to the location on the internet of where that asset is residing. Now, some NFTs may have an asset that's located on the blockchain, and so the blockchain is being pointed to in connection with the smart contract of the NFT, but that's not always the case. An artist may make an NFT of their art, and the picture of the actual art is living on the website of the artist. Now, what happens if the website goes down, or the artist dies, or they don't pay their fees to renew their domain? That will likely render the NFT completely useless. So it's really important when considering NFTs and purchasing them where the actual underlying asset is located. And if it can be transferred, if it's located merely on a website, of some third party or maybe the original creator.
So let me ask you guys a question, because I'm immediately jumping to the estate planning implications of this. So if I own this NFT that is pointing to an artist's website, I now need to be concerned about the artist's estate planning. What happens when the artist dies? And what happens to their website? What happens to their business? Because if their business stops when they die and their executor decides to take down their website, my NFT is potentially worthless. So can there be anything written into the agreement when you purchase an NFT to assure that your NFT maintains its value even after, in this situation, the death of the artist?
So I think the issue comes in is that some NFTs point to the actual asset, and the actual asset is located on the blockchain, but not all NFTs have assets that are on the blockchain. Some can just be on merely a website. And that's where the real issue comes in, because when you're minting an NFT, there's no requirement that the actual asset that the NFT is pointing to be on the blockchain. It can be located anywhere. And so there's a big fear, and there's been cases where people have spent a lot of money and didn't realize that the underlying asset that the NFT is pointing to was not on a blockchain, was on a website controlled, completely outside of the NFT by a third party, and that website went down, rendering the NFT completely useless. Well, I shouldn't say the NFT is still present, because that's just a smart contract, but the underlying asset it's pointing to is now pointing to a dead web page.
So how do I protect myself as an owner of an NFT that could potentially point to a dead web page? Do I work it into the contract when I purchase the NFT? Do I get insurance to protect me in that situation? Is that type of insurance even available? What do I do?
I don't think that type of insurance is available yet. At least I'm not aware of it. But I think looking at the terms of service agreements and the location of the underlying asset when considering purchasing an NFT is really important. And if the NFT with the asset in question that you intend to purchase is not on a blockchain, seeing if there's ways that it can be transferred to a blockchain to protect those situations from occurring.
We've talked before on prior podcasts about the tax implications of cryptocurrencies, and that cryptocurrencies are not actually considered currency for federal income tax purposes. And cryptocurrency is considered property for federal income tax purposes. So the sale of crypto or the use of crypto would be considered a property disposition or a capital gain or a capital loss, depending upon how long it's been held. Are NFTs also viewed the same way by the IRS?
Yes. Right now, they are treated as property, but they very easily could be reclassified and treated as an art or a collectible in the future, which could increase different types of capital gains taxes. And because it's treated as personal property now, there is a taxable event each time cryptocurrency is bought or sold, in connection with an NFT. So even to mint an NFT, you need to use cryptocurrency. So if you're transferring fiat into crypto to mint or purchase an NFT, in theory, that's the beginning of a taxable event that needs to be documented and tracked.
Ross had talked before about these contracts, which potentially could have tails on income streams to owners. So, for example, if Ross sold me a NFT, he could retain a percentage of the sale proceeds when I subsequently sell it to Jen. Is Ross's, I'll call it a tail, so to speak, is that considered a property disposition, or would that be regular income tax?
I think it would depend on the nature of Ross's use of the NFT and frequency, if he's a trader or if he was the creator. I think there could be situations where that could be taxable income, and then other situations that it's capital gains. So I think you need to look at the nature of the relationships and the behavior.
Yeah, I think we're kind of in an unknown area because this is so new. And I don't know that the IRS has opined on that specific situation yet. So we're kind of flying by the seat of our pants when it comes to some of these tax consequences.
Absolutely. And in the future, as laws change and regulations unfold, certain types of NFTs could be looked at as a security or a commodity, and then subject to a whole bunch of other rules and disclosure requirements. So I think we're going to see a lot more regulation in this area as time unfolds.
I'll give you one more example. What if I'm in the business of trading NFTs and I violate the terms of service and therefore I forfeit my rights to the NFT? Do I have a capital loss for the lost value of my errant transaction? I don't know. Justin, to your point, I think we are going to find out a lot more about the tax implications of NFTs in the coming years as it becomes more prevalent.
Very interesting questions. I don't have answers to all of them, and I'm going to throw some more. If you're going to transfer an NFT as a gift, how is that actually going to be valued and that valuation respected by the IRS? I'm sure that there's certain types of specialized appraisers out there that can give fair market value to NFTs, but that's a moving target as well, and one that we planners need to really consider. So these technologies are new, and the law has not yet caught up, and the rules of the code don't necessarily follow the law or what the law and evolution of the law will be. And we're really only beginning to become aware of the potential uses of NFTs, cryptocurrencies, and other emerging technologies, such as AI, virtual reality, augmented reality, deepfakes, the metaverse, and Web 3.0. And our understanding of the potential far-reaching impacts of all these technologies on all aspects of our lives is really unknown. And we look forward to continuing to really explore all things digital in connection with this evolution, specifically with estate planning, business planning, and estate administration in mind. And we'll be back in 2022 with a fantastic kickoff of our 4th season of the Digital Planning Podcast. And we'll be really diving into the metaverse and Web 3.0, and probably circling back to NFTs and, of course, DAOs, which are decentralized autonomous organizations. So there's so much to discuss, and we have a lot of special guests that we're lining up for next season to help us explore these issues and educate you about all of these digital concerns. If you have any topics you want to learn more about in this space, please feel free to email us at digitalplanningpodcast@gmail.com. Happy holidays and see you next year.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Digital Planning Podcast. For Ross and Jen, I'm Justin, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Digital Planning Podcast, the podcast designed to educate individuals about all things digital in connection with estate planning, business planning, and estate administration. Please subscribe to this podcast and leave us a rating or review on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you download your podcasts. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
This podcast is not intended nor should be relied upon as legal advice, nor is it creating any attorney-client relationship with a listener and the hosts or guests. The information provided is only for educational and informational purposes, and the information provided will likely change.